You're listening to Served Up, a podcast that features inspiring beverage professionals and topic experts that share their passions through meaningful conversations. I'm your host, Bridget Albert, also known as the Market Fresh Mixologist, an industry mentor with decades of experience. Grab a cocktail and sit back. Let's learn how we can make a positive impact in our industry. Hey y'all, it's Bridget here. Today we're joined by the incredible Gina Fossitt, an innovator in the world of spirits who also has got some serious history in the arts. Before she made her mark in the whiskey industry, Gina was a professional tap dancer, showing off some moves in her early days. Now she's the driving force behind Canadian Whisky's first certificate education program, a game-changing initiative that's transforming how we understand and appreciate Canadian whiskey. But that's just the beginning. She's also the founder of the Dandelion Agency and co-founder of Sip.Central, two ventures shaking up the beverage industry. We'll dive into her journey from tap dancing to whiskey, the inspiration behind her groundbreaking work, and how she's elevating spirits for all of us. So go ahead and grab yourself your favorite cocktail, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Gina, welcome to Served Up. I'm really happy to have you on the show today.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm excited too.
Absolutely. You've done so many things throughout your career. For our listeners, can you talk about your early years and what really made you curious about beverage?
Yeah, I sort of happened into the beverage world out of necessity, honestly. I had been a professional tap dancer for many years. And after that,
No, we have to stop right there. Professional tap dancer. Yes. I didn't know that was a thing. I tap danced for, I took tap for 18 years of my life. What? I didn't know that was an option for me. Tell me about that quickly.
Okay. Well, I grew up dancing, all sorts of genres of dance, but tap dancing was my love. And I really focused on tap dancing. And then I went to college for dance, which my parents were not happy about because they, like most people, did not foresee a career in tap dancing. But I was determined, as I usually am with my crazy ideas. And right out of college, I graduated in 3 years. And right after college, I got a gig. I skipped my college graduation because I got a new gig with a touring company. I toured tap dancing with them for 8 years, in which time I had become the assistant artistic director of the company. But at the end of that, I got a job in New York, which was always a dream of mine, to go to New York and dance, and with an awesome company. But a little different pay structure in New York. The phrase starving artist is not just a phrase, that's a real thing. And so I had to pay my bills. And that's really where I got into the beverage industry. Is I started bartending, just to pay my rent because I was getting paid per gig. I was no longer on this salary and, cushy touring life. I was being paid by gig and as a performing artist in New York City where, everything cost more. So I started bartending, and that's where, honestly, right from the get-go, I started falling in love with, at first, wine, just because I had a lot of guests sitting at the bar, enjoying a glass of wine in a hotel. I was at a hotel bar, and I really wanted to explore that. So I started getting some certifications through WSET. And then really started falling in love with the spirits world and started transitioning my career. I was then in my 30s. And so I started transitioning out of dancing into managing bar programs, and then eventually becoming a brand ambassador.
It is so amazing. Can I ask you, what company did you tour with?
Yeah, it was called Rhythm and Shoes. Unfortunately, it no longer exists, but it did exist for decades. Wonderful company of tap dancers, also cloggers. They started as a clog dance company, which I knew
Wow.
nothing about, and learned along the way. And we also had a live band, musicians, that we rehearsed with every day. It was such a luxury to be surrounded by live music and doing what you love for 8 hours a day or more.
Yeah, that's really incredible. Just I have a very small dance background. So I do feel like a little bit of kinship with you. I'm just in awe that you were able to take my favorite style of dance and you got paid for it. It's so cool. But I'd love to talk about how, before we really dive into your career, I want to still kind of stay in that beginning when you jump behind the bar. And you mentioned, like, you start off with wine. How did those skills that you learned as a performer translate to the bar?
To me, the bar was a stage, and I don't know that I really thought about it consciously like that. And my job today, even still, I think everything for me is how I perform. And at the bar or behind the bar, you have the bar as kind of that black curtain, from the stage to the audience. And guests are constantly watching every move you make on how you're making a cocktail, why you're pouring what into, a specific glass. Everything is, there's questions, which is really great conversation with the guest. But it was a performing kind of outlet for me, which was nice.
Yeah, I could see that. And so, okay, so take us from the bar to brand ambassador. Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, so I was managing a program in New York, and then I was managing a few other programs before that, actually, and really just learning the inventory, learning the cost structure, learning kind of that back of house to a bar program, not the performing side of it. And then ended up, basically being the beverage director of a large program, of which I was training a lot of my staff. I realized there were a lot of bottles that sat on the back bar and got dusty every week when we did inventory. My bar manager did inventory. And I was like, is anybody selling this? Why are we not selling it? And it was because nobody knew anything about it. And so I started getting brand ambassadors, sales reps, anybody who could teach us anything about these products so we could start moving them, start selling them, or get rid of them, get them off the back bar if they're not of interest to our customers, if they don't make sense for the program. And through that, Diageo had a position that became available in their Master of Whiskey program, which was their whiskey ambassador program at the time. I was lucky enough to go through 3 months of crazy interviews and presentations and land that job as a whiskey ambassador. And that job really propelled me into what I'm doing today. I would have never guessed, going from a tap dancer to a bartender, that I would end up being a major educator in the field.
It was truly such a unique journey. And especially, we didn't see a whole lot of women in that particular category as brand ambassadors. Can you talk about what was that like for you?
Yeah,
Was there
at
any
the
challenges
time,
you had to overcome, or
sure.
was it all just like sunshine and rainbows?
Oh no, not a lot of sunshine and rainbows. Actually, there were a lot of sunshine and rainbows, but it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. There were certainly some challenges. The team at that time only had 2 other women on it, and it was quite a large team. I couldn't tell you the exact number, maybe 15 to 20 of us. But there were only 2 other women who were very experienced. So luckily, they took me under their wing and guided me. But also, being in one of the largest markets in the US, in New York City at that time, it really forced me to just take charge and although I was surrounded by a lot of men who, some of which, it was a challenge to convince them that I was worthy of the role, and some of which honestly trained me and brought me up through this industry in ways that I could have never imagined. Ewan Morgan was our boss at the time, and he honestly challenged me in ways I never would have done myself. He asked me to take on projects that I was scared out of my mind to do. But I did, and it really helped me gain the confidence that I needed. He really guided me in that, and I'm so thankful.
What did the position really lend to your skills and your knowledge that you have today?
Well, I was able to, being pushed in directions that made me uncomfortable or that I didn't think I was prepared for, also pushed my creative energy in ways that, again, I don't think I was consciously like, ooh, I get to be creative here. I was just kind of forced into a situation, and my creative brain went to work on how to tackle the problem. So it forced me to learn how I develop education, because I had to develop education for the program, for accounts, for, the Masters of Whisky, for other ambassadors. And I really had to be thorough, and I realized I had to understand it and be confident in what I was saying in order to teach anyone else, or it just wasn't going to work.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. So take us from, your time from being a brand ambassador to what was next.
Well, eventually I moved to Chicago with my husband, and we started a family. And I was still with Diageo as an ambassador. I came onto the George Dickel team, which was new at that time. And again, they really allowed me to have some creative freedom on how I executed that role. And I was really interested in that time in being at the distillery and really immersing myself in the archives and the production, in every aspect of it. So I would spend 3-4 days at the distillery almost every month, just diving into archives, getting to know the guy at the fermenter, really, really understanding the process. And they allowed me that freedom to do so, which led to me being able to lead some distillery internships that were developed. They were like 3 to 4 day internships for bartenders, sales reps, different groups coming in that were very focused on the brand. So I was able to lead those. And then eventually I left the team to become the national ambassador for lot number 40 on the Canadian whiskey portfolio. So that national job was very interesting because they hadn't created a role like that for that brand before. So here I was with this very large team, lots of structure, lots of support to, hey, here you go. Go be an ambassador for Lot 40. But having less structure then again allowed me to develop my own. It really showed me the structure that I wanted and could create for myself in the field, to not only, help with sales, but really develop the education that was needed. And what I quickly came to understand, which the global ambassador, Dave Mitten, knew already because he had been in his role for a few years, which was that Canadian whiskey is highly misunderstood. So honestly, we set out to really dissemble a lot of, misconceptions about the category.
It's so interesting to me because as you're talking, I was thinking about the category had to have been so fucking challenging because people don't understand it. They see it as a lot of times as like this cheap, I don't even know. There's a cheap spirit. Is it whiskey? Is it really not whiskey? It comes from Canada. Maybe has some cool stories around prohibition, but I'm not too sure.
Right.
It had to come with like a lot of headaches So
yeah, a lot of
talk
people
about
were
like,
like, you're crazy. What are you doing? This is like a career suicide here. What are you doing? And I was like, no one is doing this. No one is putting in the work on this category. And I was ready to roll up my sleeves and put in the work. And, that still continues, luckily. But through that time, the company changed importers in the US and really changed how they were coming to market in the US and globally. And I was able to pitch a new role to them, which was their trade and education manager, to really focus on developing their educational programming for the trade, but also for consumer and their sales trade, not just the bar industry trade, kind of for all facets to really oversee that. We had multiple importers throughout the world, all trying to compete with one another with the same portfolio. So I really kind of held an umbrella role, making sure that everyone kind of played nice in the sandbox at the same events. And we set up together and we came together as a category, and it was really important that we lead with category, dissemble those misconceptions, and use the brands as high quality styles within it to kind of show that off.
Absolutely. I had the opportunity years ago when I had a program called the Advanced Culinary Academy. And I would bring bartenders, bar owners from Chicago that were part of the program, like all over the world. And one of those stops was in Canada to learn about Canadian whiskey. And it was such an eye opener for so many, including myself. I love the history of the product itself, of the category. I think it's absolutely fascinating. And there's so many brands that are delicious, right?
Oh, yeah. And the category is expanding, exponentially now with so many different styles. We were just talking yesterday with a group about how on the west coast of Canada, it seems like they are starting to have their own niche style. And it's kind of funky and tropical and fun. And then there's very traditional styles and their production methods are very different. So all of that kind of led to, COVID happened, which we all don't love to remember, but it led to a time of me really focusing on how do we get this education out, especially to our distributors, to our salespeople who don't know anything about the category or very little. How do we continue to give them the information? So I developed a course called the ABCs of Canadian Whiskey with the team. It was first developed just for sales teams. It was 1 hour a week, which we still do this version for sales teams, importers, and smaller groups. But it's very category focused, like I said, with the portfolio of Corby, Corby Spirits and Wine with their portfolio, JP Weiser's Lot 40 and the lot, kind of giving the examples of each week's topic. That turned into a full certification because it became more popular than any of us foresaw. And so we started working with Lush Life to develop a full certification, which we're in our 4th year of right now. We just started this week. And it's been amazing. We have over 500 students that have gone through the course at this point. And by the end of this year, the course will have over 800 students that have gone through it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So far, it's the only certification that exists in Canadian whiskey. I'm sure there's some right around the corner that are coming to life. I hope so, because that's the point. We want people to know about the category. We want to educate people, and we want there to be as much information out there as there can be.
How can our listeners find information on the course? So
we just started an Instagram page. So know that when you get to it, we are in the building process, but you will see it from the beginning. It is AEH.B.CS_Canadian_whiskey. And in there, you will see the course kind of come to life through this year as we develop the Instagram page. But yeah, you'll find tidbits about Canadian whiskey. You'll find information about the course. We've got some sessions coming up. One in particular is a new partnership with WSET. We took their global educators through the course last year. We're going to do that again. But we have a second session for anyone who has passed Spirits Level 2, can get into a link and purchase the course and take the course this spring in April. So that's actually out there right now. We're going to probably promote that on the Instagram page next week.
That is so great. I mean, not only have you created just this amazing platform, right? And a chance for folks in the beverage industry to get an accreditation that will help their careers, right? Having these accreditations on your resume means something to a lot of employers. And I think especially listeners, for those who are looking to step out of the bar and jump into like a corporate America kind of a role with a brand, with a distributor.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who's looking to step out from the restaurant, a lot of times I see this course as it is super beneficial for anyone in the restaurant because they're the ones talking to guests and they're the ones who have a ton of questions coming at them that they're like, I don't know. No one's ever told me why this style of whiskey is the way it is. I really don't know. But outside of that, if you have a broader perspective on the categories, it gives you a broader perspective on selling, marketing, project management, any facet of this industry. It really gives you the perspective that you need to do those jobs.
Well, that's really, really great. And you really partnered with such a distinguished organization, with WSET. It's recognized by all beverage professionals. So congratulations on that as well. I know that you wear, I know you wear many hats. Can we talk about what does Dandelion mean to you?
So Dandelion Bev Ed is my new agency. It's in its infancy, but I launched on January 2nd and are we full throttle right now? Going hard. But it's an agency that I created for educational programming specifically. A lot of agencies are experiential, that include some educational components that are very important, but the core of them tend to be more experiential of, what's the pizzazz. The core of this agency is the educational programming. So there are experiential elements that are developed for programs, depending what size of the program that gets developed for a brand or a supplier or distributor, consumer event. But the through line is that everything really is full circle, that all of the messaging from marketing to sales to your ambassadors, every event has a through line of your brand and your categories ground or foundational messaging that really teaches people what it's about and why it's there. Kind of using that as the core, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's almost like a 360 experience.
Yeah, and it comes to life in many different ways. Right now, luckily, Dandelion Bev Ed is now the producer of the ABC's certification and the business developer of that programming. But we're also working on programming for other brands outside of Canadian whiskey, a vermouth project, some really fun stuff coming up that helps people understand the categories, why they go with other spirits, and putting the fun into it. Education doesn't have to be boring, sitting down in a classroom style setting. We can make a game, we can have some fun, depending on what the needs of the brand are and the market.
It's nice that you have the freedom and to just be very authentic, about the work as well, I think is really important. I think lots of folks are going to gravitate towards it. It's definitely needed.
Yeah. And there's so many emerging brands or brands that are sort of coming to life in a new way right now in this market that there is a need. I think a lot of people feel a little lost. They launch a brand and they're like, how do I go teach a sales team where my product fits in this category? Why is my product unique? I like it. It's great. My community likes it. But how am I going to sell this outside of there? And it's more than price and a logo on a bottle that looks really good. It's really giving them the foundational knowledge and something to really believe in.
Oh, I love that. What's next for you, Gina?
Oh, what's next? I don't know. Every day is a different day. What's next? What's tomorrow? I am working on another project that's very exciting that I have co-founded with Kyle McHugh, a good friend of mine. And back in the day, one of the Diageo Masters of Whisky as well, which is where we met, called Sip.Central. And it's really creating a customized digital hub for distributors, suppliers. We really set out to make distributors our customer base, but we're finding that suppliers are actually in need of this more than we thought. But it organizes all the sales assets that they need. A sales team really needs to be armed, especially today, with something at their fingertips that they can say, oh, here's the sell sheet digitally. I can email it to you. Here's a logo for an event poster that I need to create. Here's a bottle shot. There's so many things that we have on this digital hub and can customize per brand to really just empower people in the field and make their jobs easier. Yeah. We want everything to be accessible.
Well, absolutely. And it's really important for a salesperson to be able to go in and talk to their client intelligently, right, about that bottle.
Yeah. And we're finding a lot of sales teams, when asked for a sell sheet or a logo or a whatever it might be that they're in need of in that moment, they're like, I know I have it. It's either in this box.com, file somewhere, or somebody didn't update that. So now I'm going to look through this group of emails because I have a relationship with this one supplier, but not the other one. But my colleague might have it over here in an email. And it's like, we're spending too much time searching for things. It needs to be very concise, very easy, and very accessible.
Yeah, I agree. Well, congratulations to you both on that. That's wonderful.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a fun project.
Absolutely. Gina, can you give some advice to folks that are listening just about being an entrepreneur and if those who want to really dip those, their toes in that water, what would you say to them?
Well, I'm new to being an entrepreneur, so I'll give you my newbie advice. And there's a couple things that I think really come to mind. One is outside of being an entrepreneur, just as your career is developing, when I really look back at mine, I find I'm actually going to refer to one of your podcasts. You had a guest, Amy, on, who I'm not going to quote her directly because I'm not going to get it right, but she said something like, you really need to take your own career path or your own destiny into your own hands or someone else will. And I kind of sat with that sentence when I listened to that for a minute. And I was like, wow, that's really powerful. That's a really powerful statement. And then I realized not completely true for me, because there were times in my career that someone else did take control because they saw potential in me that I did not see. And I'm just really thankful that they did. And they pushed me in a way, like I said earlier, that I would never have done, you know? However, what I would say to that statement, because there are times in my career that I did take control. I pitched my own job titles, in a corporate world. So there are times when it is good someone takes control, if they have your best interest in mind, of course. And there's times that it's really important that you take control. I think the worst is if no one takes control.
Yes. Oh, that should be on a t-shirt.
I'd wear that t-shirt. But I'm a control freak too, so. But if no one takes control, who knows where you're going to wind up? Could be great. Could be, I don't know. It's a whirlwind, of where that's going to end. So that's one that's been really impactful to me lately. As far as entrepreneurship, though, and this is something people say all the time, you just got to put yourself out there. You just got to put yourself out there. And I never really connected to that. I was like, I don't know. Aren't I doing that? But once I took the leap as of January 2nd, wow, did that become real and really fast. I mean, you do have to put yourself out there. Things that you would say, that would be a great seminar to develop, but I'm not the person to do it. I'm now saying that would be a great seminar to develop. I'm going to do that with the right person. I'm going to find the person to do it with, because I am the right person to organize it. I am the right person to make sure it comes to life in the right way. But maybe there's some elements that I'm missing. And so instead of me being not confident about just going for it, I've decided to go for it and find the right partners.
Well, with that said, I want to thank you so much for being on Served Up. I do hope that you'll come back and give us an update on what you're up to and all these fabulous programs as they evolve and become even bigger in the future. But, on behalf of Served Up, I want to wish you some great health and a lot of peace. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Gina.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Served Up is brought to you by Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. Produced by Zunu.online. Music by We Killed the Lion can be found on Spotify. Make sure to subscribe to be notified of our future Served Up episodes. Cheers.